Every morning the boy faced cruelty. His lunch stolen, his paper cranes crushed, his small voice drowned out by laughter. But one day, everything changed. A quiet single father stepped forward, and with him came 25 champions trained not to fight, but to protect. At first it looked like hope had finally arrived, but behind the applause, secrets were festering. Powerful men pulling strings, a whispered confession that could shatter reputations, and a community forced to choose between silence and truth. Because this isn't just about one boy, it's about an entire town learning what real strength means. So the question is, when bullies hold the power and the truth threatens to break everything apart, will courage and compassion be enough to save them all? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The October wind bit through Jamie Hart's thin jacket as he waited at the corner of Maple Street, where the school bus always stopped at 7:15 sharp. His small fingers worked the edges of the paper crane his mother had tucked into his lunchbox that morning, right beside her daily note written on yellow paper. The bird's wings caught the early light, white paper folded into perfect angles, each crease a tiny act of love. 3 shadows fell across the sidewalk. "Look who's here all alone." Cole Benson's voice carried that particular edge Jamie had learned to fear. The 12-year-old stood with his hands shoved deep in his Letterman jacket pockets, flanked by 2 boys from his grade. "Where's your mommy, little man? Too busy being important?" Jamie took a step back, his heel catching the curb. The crane trembled in his grip. "What's that supposed to be?" One of Cole's friends reached for the paper bird. "Some kind of toy?" "It's just—" Jamie's voice came out smaller than he wanted. "My mom made it." Cole snatched the crane before Jamie could pull away. He held it up to the gray morning sky, examining it with mock interest. "Your mom makes paper birds? What is she, 5 years old?" "Give it back." The words barely escaped Jamie's throat. "Or what?" Cole stepped closer, and Jamie smelled peanut butter on his breath. "You gonna tell your lady boss mommy on us? Gonna have her fire our dads?" The other boys laughed, sharp barks that echoed off the empty street. Jamie's chest tightened. He reached for the crane, but Cole held it higher, just beyond his grasp. "Please." "You know what? I don't think you need this baby stuff." Cole dropped the crane onto the sidewalk. The white paper landed softly, wings spread against the concrete. Then his sneaker came down hard, grinding the delicate folds into nothing. Jamie's eyes burned. He bit the inside of his cheek, tasting copper. "Hey!" The voice cut through the morning air like a blade through silk, not loud but solid, unmovable. Danny Ruiz stood 10 feet away, his daughter Sophia beside him. He wore a gray marine sweatshirt, the eagle globe and anchor faded from years of washing. His stance looked relaxed, but Jamie noticed how his weight balanced perfectly between both feet. "Morning, boys." Danny's tone stayed conversational, but something in it made Cole's friends step back. "Bus should be here any minute." Cole's jaw worked. "We're just talking." "I can see that." Danny moved forward with unhurried steps, positioning himself between Jamie and the older boys without making it obvious. "Sophia, why don't you show Jamie that new kata move you've been working on?" Sophia, 16, with her father's steady gaze, nodded and gently touched Jamie's shoulder. "Come on, I'll teach you the opening stance." But Jamie couldn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the crushed paper beneath Cole's shoe. Danny followed his gaze. Without breaking eye contact with Cole, he knelt slowly and picked up the flattened crane. His weathered hands smoothed the crumpled wings with surprising gentleness. "You know what takes real strength?" Danny's voice stayed soft, meant for all of them, but especially for Jamie. "Creating something beautiful, making something from nothing." He studied the damaged bird. "Any fool can destroy. Takes about 2 seconds and 0 talent." Cole's face reddened. "My dad says, I know your father." Danny stood, the ruined crane cradled in his palm. "Good man, tough job, being superintendent. Lot of pressure." He paused. But I don't think he'd want to hear about this morning, would he? The threat hung unspoken. Cole's friends had already started backing toward the street corner. We were just... Cole's voice cracked, betraying his age. We were joking around. Jokes are supposed to be funny. Danny's expression remained neutral, but Jamie saw something shift in his eyes, a flash of the soldier he'd been. This wasn't funny. The yellow bus rumbled around the corner, brakes squealing as it approached. Cole and his friends rushed toward it without another word, shoving each other to be first up the steps. Danny waited until they'd boarded, before kneeling to Jamie's eye level. This close, Jamie could see the thin scar that ran through his left eyebrow. "You okay?" Jamie nodded, then shook his head, then shrugged. His throat felt too tight for words. "That's honest." Danny held out the damaged crane. "Sometimes things get broken. Doesn't mean they're worthless. Your mom will help you make another one." "She didn't make it," Jamie's voice came out whispered. "I did, for her." Danny's expression softened. Even better, real champions create things, protect things. They don't make others feel small. He pressed the paper bird gently into Jamie's palm. "You remember that." The bus door hissed open. Sophia appeared at Jamie's side, her hand finding his shoulder again. "Sit with me," she said. "Not a question. I've got fruit snacks." As Jamie climbed the bus steps, he heard Danny call out, "Have a good day, buddy. You've got this." Jamie found a window seat halfway back. Through the smudged glass, he watched Danny standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching, until the bus pulled away. The crushed crane rested in Jamie's lap, its wings beyond repair, but somehow still his. 20 minutes away, Lila Hart clicked through her morning emails in the HeartWorks conference room, preparing for the quarterly board meeting. Coffee steamed at her elbow. Spreadsheets filled her screen. She had no idea that her son's carefully folded hope lay crushed, or that a quiet guardian had stood watch at a lonely bus stop. The next morning arrived wrapped in fog, the kind that made Maple Ridge look like a town from a storybook. Danny pulled his truck into the school parking lot at 7:15, earlier than usual. Sophia sat beside him, her competition GI folded on her lap. "You sure about this, Dad?" Danny cut the engine. "When someone hurts a kid, we don't look away." Through the windshield, they watched other vehicles pulling in. Vans, motorcycles, a city bus that stopped just long enough to let someone off. One by one, figures emerged from the mist, carrying gym bags, walking with purpose. By 7:30, 25 people stood in the parking lot, adjusting their GIs, tying their belts. Danny knew each story. Marcus, the Marine who lost his leg in Kandahar and now taught adaptive athletics. Rosa, 68, who started training after her husband died and needed something to fight for. Chen, barely 5 feet tall, who could flip men twice his size. Veterans and teachers, teenagers and grandparents, black belts and brown, blue, and green. "Circle up," Danny called. They formed a ring in the empty lot, breath visible in the cold air. No speeches. They'd talked enough at the dojo last night after Danny made his call. Now came action. Remember, this isn't about intimidation, it's about presence. We show them what strength looks like when it's not afraid. Marcus adjusted his prosthetic, tested his balance. Hoo-ah. At 7:45, the morning rush began. Parents' cars formed lines, dropping kids at the entrance. The 25 champions walked toward the school as one unit, their footsteps synchronized without trying. They formed 2 lines flanking the main walkway, creating a corridor of calm. Danny stepped forward. His voice carried across the morning. "Good morning, Maple Ridge Elementary. We're from Shield and Shalom Dojo, and we're here to share something." Parents stopped mid-goodbye. Kids forgot to close car doors. Even the crossing guard lowered her stop sign to watch. This is the champion stance. All 25 shifted in perfect unison, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, hands open at their sides. Not aggressive, not defensive, simply ready. This is how we stand when we're not afraid, when we know our own strength, when we choose peace because we can, not because we have to. Rosa, silver-haired and steady, stepped forward. Who wants to learn? A kindergartner raised her hand, then a third grader. Then dozens of children surged forward, and suddenly the morning drop-off transformed into something else entirely. Champions paired with students, teaching them to plant their feet, to breathe from their center, to hold their hands open instead of clenched. Chen worked with the smallest kids, showing them how balance came from within. You don't need to be big. You need to be rooted, like a tree. Marcus demonstrated adaptive movements with middle schoolers, his prosthetic no obstacle to his grace. Everyone's got different abilities. That's what makes us stronger together. The crowd grew. Parents abandoned their cars, joining their children on the sidewalk. Mrs. Patterson from the PTA tried a stance, laughing when she wobbled. Mr. Rodriguez, still in his postal uniform, bowed properly to his 6-year-old instructor. Through it all, Jamie stood at the edge, one hand gripping his backpack strap. He'd arrived with his mother, but she'd had to rush to an early meeting. Now he watched alone as the morning transformed around him. Sophia found him there. She didn't say anything, just held out her hand. When he took it, she led him to where Danny stood teaching a group of 4th graders. "Dad, Jamie wants to learn." Danny's eyes found Jamie's. "Good man. Let's start with breathing." For 10 minutes, Jamie learned to stand, really stand, to feel the ground beneath his feet, to hold his spine straight without straining. When Danny adjusted his shoulders, the touch felt safe, protective. Near the buses, Cole Benson and his friends clustered together, watching. Cole's face had gone pale beneath his backwards cap. One friend tried to joke, but the words died when 25 pairs of eyes turned their way, not threatening, just seeing them, really seeing them. The warning bell rang at 8:10. Principal Pike emerged from the main entrance, her professional smile stretched wide for the crowd. She clapped along with everyone else, made appropriate sounds of appreciation. "Wonderful demonstration. Thank you all so much. Now, children, time for class." As students streamed inside, champions bowing to each child who passed, Pike caught Danny's elbow. "A word?" They stepped aside while the others packed up. Pike's smile never wavered, but her voice dropped low. That was quite a show. It wasn't a show. Of course not. She glanced around, checking who might overhear. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, really, but we have procedures, protocols. You can't just—" She gestured at the dispersing champions. "We have donors to consider, board members, the superintendent." Cole's father. Pike's smile flickered. "I'm asking you not to make waves. We handle discipline internally. How's that working out?" Her professional mask slipped for just a moment, and Danny saw exhaustion underneath. Fear, maybe. Then the smile returned. "Thank you for your enthusiasm. But next time, please clear any activities with the office first." That evening, Jamie burst through the front door of their small rental house like a comet. Lila barely had time to set down her laptop before he crashed into her arms. Mom, you should have seen it. Mr. Danny brought all these people and they wore these white uniforms and they taught us to stand like champions and—" "Slow down, baby. Breathe." But Jamie couldn't slow down. The words tumbled out. About stances and breathing. About Rosa, who looked like Grandma but could break boards. About Marcus with one leg who moved like dancing. About how Cole Benson hadn't said a single word all day. About how Mr. Danny made him feel brave. Lila held her son close, feeling his excitement vibrate through her chest. This man, this Danny, had done what she couldn't, had stood up publicly, where she'd only been able to write careful emails and schedule careful meetings. "I want to meet him," she said into Jamie's hair. "This Mr. Danny." Tomorrow, she promised herself. Tomorrow she'd make time. 3 days had passed since the Champions' morning demonstration, and Lila finally carved out time between a supplier meeting and quarterly reports. She'd told her assistant she had a personal matter, true enough, and drove across town to Shield and Shalom Dojo. The building sat between Chen's tailoring and a vacant storefront, its brick facade weathered but clean. Through the glass door she glimpsed movement and heard children's laughter mixing with steady counts. Inside, the space opened wider than expected. Polished wood floors reflected afternoon light from high windows. The walls held dozens of photographs, veterans in uniform, kids breaking boards, an elderly woman mid-kick with perfect form. A banner stretched across one wall. Strength means protecting the weak. Jamie stood in a line of children, all in white uniforms too big for their small frames. Sophia faced them, demonstrating a basic block, while Rosa counted in Spanish and English. Uno, block high. Dos, return to ready. Jamie's face scrunched in concentration, his movements half a beat behind but determined. When he spotted his mother, his whole body lit up, though he kept his position. Focus, little warrior, Rosa said gently. Your mom wants to see you do it right. Danny emerged from a back office, wiping his hands on a towel. He wore the same quiet confidence she'd heard about, moving through his space like he belonged to it and it to him. Mrs. Hart, welcome. Lila, please. He nodded, gestured toward a bench along the wall. They've got 10 more minutes. Hope that's okay. She sat, watching her son mirror Sophia's movements. Other champions worked with different groups. Chen teaching teenagers joint locks, Marcus leading a session for kids with various disabilities. The space hummed with purpose, but never chaos. Your daughter's a natural teacher. Gets that from her mother. Danny's voice carried something heavy. Elena had a gift for reaching kids. Had, past tense. Lila recognized the weight of that word. How long has Jamie been coming? Just started yesterday. Sophia brought him after school, said he needed to learn to feel strong. Danny watched the children. Smart girl. Knows the difference between feeling strong and acting tough. Jamie completed a sequence correctly, and Rosa praised him in rapid Spanish. He beamed, glancing again at his mother. You've built something special here. We all did. Every person on these walls contributed something. Danny pointed to a photo of an older black woman in marine dress blues. Sergeant Johnson there. She started our adaptive program, said if she could survive Paris Island with Mississippi racism, she could teach anybody to stand tall. The class ended with children bowing to their instructors, then to each other. Jamie ran to his mother, still in his too large uniform. Did you see? I did the whole form. You were amazing, baby. While Jamie changed, Danny gave her a brief tour. The back room held heavy bags and sparring gear. Another space served as a quiet room. Mats, soft lighting, books about breathing and mindfulness. Some of our veterans need space to decompress, he explained. Kids, too, sometimes. They stopped at a wall covered in handwritten notes. Thank you cards from parents, drawings from children, letters from veterans. One caught her eye. This place saved my life when nothing else could. Tom. That philosophy, she said. Strength for protecting. Where's it from? Life. Danny's hands rested easy at his sides. Took me too long to learn it. War teaches you to be strong against enemies. Coming home, raising Sophia alone, that taught me strength means something different. Means standing between harm and those who can't protect themselves. Means building instead of breaking. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. I should thank you for the other morning, for this. She gestured at Jamie, emerging from the changing room in his school clothes, folding his uniform carefully. No thanks needed, though. Danny hesitated. I should mention, Principal Pike wasn't thrilled with our demonstration, asked me not to make waves. I heard. Lila's jaw tightened. She called me, expressed concerns about proper channels. You run Heartworks, right? The company that hires veterans? Among others. Second chances are kind of our thing. Then you know how systems protect themselves, how people with good intentions get squeezed by people with power. She knew. God, she knew. Jamie bounced over, backpack in hand. Can I come back Monday? We'll see. That means yes, right? Danny laughed. a warm sound that transformed his face. "Your mom's careful. That's smart. But you're welcome here any time, warrior." As they walked to the door, Lila turned back. "I appreciate what you're doing. I have to be careful about publicity. My position makes things complicated." "Understood. We're not here for spectacle, just safety. Peace, if we can manage it." Outside, the late afternoon sun painted Main Street gold. Across the road, a massive billboard dominated the corner. Walsh Holdings, building a better Maple Ridge. Gideon Walsh's silver-haired image smiled down at them, all paternal benevolence. Lila's frown came unbidden. Walsh Holdings owned half the commercial property in town. They'd just secured the district's facilities contract, and Gideon Walsh had personally donated the new gymnasium where— "Mom?" "Sorry, baby, just thinking." But as they drove home, Jamie chattering about kicks and stances, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that complications were coming. Men like Gideon Walsh didn't appreciate disruptions to their carefully ordered worlds, and Danny Ruiz had definitely caused a disruption. The Riverside ballroom sparkled with November elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables draped in white linen, each centerpiece a careful arrangement of red poppies and small American flags. Veterans Day was still a week away, but Maple Ridge's elite had gathered early to write checks and be seen writing them. Lila adjusted Jamie's clip-on bow tie for the third time. He'd insisted on coming. All the other kids get to go to fancy things, and she hadn't had the heart to refuse. He sat beside her now, carefully folding his cloth napkin into something resembling a crane. "That's Pastor June," Jamie pointed across the room where the older woman held court at a table of veterans, her silver hair gleaming. Danny sat beside her, uncomfortable in his dress uniform, while Sophia chatted with an elderly Marine about his service dog. "Can we go say hi?" "After dinner, baby." The room filled steadily. Town council members, school board officials, business owners, all here to honor veterans and, more importantly, to be photographed doing so. Principal Pike worked the room in a burgundy dress, laughing too loud at donors' jokes. At the head table, Gideon Walsh presided like a benevolent king. His silver hair caught the light as he shook hands, patted shoulders, played the town patriarch to perfection. Beside him sat empty chairs for the mayor and superintendent, both running late. "Look, Mom," Jamie pointed again, "that lady works at my school." Marisol Vega moved between tables, not as a guest but as staff, ensuring water glasses stayed full despite this being her night off. Her son Eli trailed behind her, thin and quiet, in an ill-fitting blazer that had seen better days. The evening proceeded with military precision. Pledge of Allegiance, invocation by Pastor June, salad course, speeches about sacrifice and service. Lila noticed Danny's jaw tighten during the third speech, another politician who'd never served talking about understanding combat. During the main course, chicken or fish, the eternal gala choice, Eli Vega slipped away from his mother. Marisol, busy helping an elderly veteran with his walker, didn't notice her son wandering toward the hallway that led to the restrooms. The marble corridor muffled the ballroom's noise. Eli walked slowly, running his fingers along the textured wallpaper, killing time until his mother finished working at an event she should have been attending. He studied the oil paintings of Maple Ridge founders, all stern men with similar faces, similar names. Footsteps echoed. Gideon Walsh emerged from the men's room, adjusting his cufflinks. He nearly walked past the boy, then stopped. Something in Eli's face, the shape of his eyes maybe, or the way he stood with one shoulder slightly higher, made the millionaire pause. "You're Marisol's son." Eli nodded. Up close, Gideon seemed even taller, more imposing. The man smelled of expensive cologne and confidence. "Shouldn't you be with your mother?" "She's working." Eli's voice barely rose above a whisper. "She always works at these things." Gideon started to move past, but Eli stepped forward. The boy's hands trembled, but his feet stayed planted. He'd practiced this moment in his bedroom mirror 100 times, though he'd never thought it would actually come. "Mr. Walsh?" "Yes?" The words came out in a rush, soft as breath. "Mommy says you're my daddy." The hallway seemed to shrink. Gideon's practiced smile crumbled, his face cycling through shock, anger, fear, before settling on something cold and controlled. "What did you say?" "She told me, last week. After you came to the house about the broken vase. She was crying, and she said you're my father." Footsteps approached, rapid, panicked. Marisol rounded the corner, her face draining of color when she saw them together. Her hands reached for Eli, pulling him back. "I'm sorry, Mr. Walsh. He shouldn't have—" "What have you told him?" Gideon's voice dropped to a hiss. "Nothing. I mean—" Marisol's eyes filled. "He asked. He's been asking for years. I couldn't keep lying. We had an agreement." "You had an agreement?" "I had no choice." Gideon glanced toward the ballroom, toward the light and laughter and his carefully constructed life. Then back to the boy whose eyes, God, they were his eyes, weren't they? The same gray-green that stared back from his mirror each morning. "Listen to me." Gideon knelt, gripping Eli's shoulders, not gently. "Whatever your mother told you, whatever you think you know, you never say it again, to anyone. Do you understand?" Eli's eyes welled. "But, do you understand?" The boy nodded, tears spilling over. Gideon released him, stood, straightened his jacket. Without another word he strode back toward the ballroom, toward the warm lights and applause as the mayor finally arrived. Marisol slumped against the wall, pulling Eli close. Her body shook with silent sobs while her son watched the doorway where Gideon had disappeared. "Why doesn't he want me?" Eli whispered. She had no answer, only tears and the echoing silence of a marble hallway, while in the ballroom Gideon Walsh raised his glass in a toast to service and sacrifice. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind that made autumn feel like a broken promise. Lila dropped Jamie at school 10 minutes early, watching until he disappeared safely through the front doors before heading to her office. She'd barely settled at her desk when her assistant knocked. "Principal Pike called. She's requesting you come to the school immediately." The drive back took 12 minutes. Lila counted each one, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. In the school parking lot, she recognized several cars. Board members, she realized. Whatever this was, Pike hadn't called her alone. The principal's office smelled of coffee and anxiety. Pike sat behind her desk, fingers laced, professional smile firmly in place. But her eyes darted to the window, the door, anywhere but Lila's face. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Hart. Please sit." Lila remained standing. "Is Jamie all right?" "Yes, of course. This isn't about Jamie specifically." Pike shuffled papers that didn't need shuffling. "It's about the recent demonstrations, the martial arts exhibition. The courage clinic that dozens of parents praised?" "Yes, well," Pike's smile strained. "While we appreciate community involvement, we need to be mindful of how we approach these sensitive issues." Sensitive. The district is currently in negotiations for a major facilities upgrade. New science labs, updated technology, repairs to the gymnasium roof. Pike finally met Lila's eyes. Walsh Holdings has generously offered to fund the entire project. The room's temperature seemed to drop. Lila sat slowly, processing the implications. "I see. I support anti-bullying initiatives, Mrs. Hart. Truly. But we must consider the broader picture. These contracts could transform our school, provide opportunities for all our students. And Gideon Walsh wants the martial arts demonstrations to stop." "No one said that." Pike's denial came too quick. "We simply need to ensure that our approach doesn't ruffle certain feathers. Your company, Heartworks, also benefits from positive relationships in this community, doesn't it? Several of your veterans have children in our school." The threat hung between them, polite and poisonous. "My son was cornered and terrorized," Lila said quietly. "Other children have faced the same. And you're asking me to be quiet about it for the sake of new computers? I'm asking you to consider the complex realities we navigate. Change takes time, patience. How much patience should an 8-year-old have while bigger kids call him names? Pike's composure cracked slightly. The Benson boy has been spoken to. The superintendent's son. Silence stretched. Pike straightened a perfectly straight nameplate. As I said, these are complex realities. We all want what's best for the children. Lila stood. Do we? She left without waiting for an answer. Across town, Gideon Walsh sat in his top-floor office, the entire valley visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. He wasn't looking at the view. Instead, he stared at a single piece of paper on his mahogany desk, a paternity test form from a private clinic, every line filled out except for his signature. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Your 2 o'clock is here, Mr. Walsh. Cancel it. Sir? Cancel everything this afternoon. He'd ordered the test kit 3 days ago, the morning after the gala. It arrived with discreet packaging, promising confidential results within 48 hours. All he had to do was sign, submit, know for certain. But knowing meant choosing, and choosing meant destroying everything he'd built or abandoning a boy who might be his son. Mommy says you're my daddy. The words echoed in his mind, soft and devastating. He picked up his pen, set it down, picked it up again. His hand hovered over the signature line. 13 years ago, Marisol had been young, beautiful, working late hours cleaning his offices. He'd been separated from his wife, drinking too much, making promises he never intended to keep. When she told him about the pregnancy, he'd written a check, made her sign papers, thought that was the end of it. His phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer about the school facilities contract. Everything on track, Pike cooperating beautifully. Another text from the superintendent thanking him for his understanding about the situation. Everyone cooperating, everyone falling in line, the way Maple Ridge always worked, power flowing through channels he'd carved over decades. He signed the form. That evening, Jamie sat at the kitchen table, tongue poking out in concentration, as he folded another paper crane. This one was blue, made from a candy wrapper Sophia had given him. 27 now, he announced proudly. Sophia says if I make 1,000, I get a wish. Lila smiled from the stove, stirring soup. That's a lot of cranes. I already made my wish. Oh, what is it? Jamie's face clouded. I can't tell you, or it won't come true. But today I tried something else. He pulled a crumpled crane from his pocket. Red paper, torn wings, footprint across its back. I tried to give this one to Cole, at recess. I thought maybe if I was nice to him, he'd stop being mean. Jamie's voice grew smaller. He stepped on it, made sure the teacher wasn't looking first, then crushed it. Lila abandoned the stove, pulling her son close. He smelled like crayon wax and playground dust, like childhood slipping away too fast. You did a brave, kind thing. Cole's reaction is about him, not you. Why does he hate me? I don't think he hates you, baby. I think he's scared. Of what? Of kindness, Lila thought. Of anything that might crack the armor his father makes him wear. Sometimes people are scared of what they don't understand. Later, after homework and bath time, after 3 stories and 2 glasses of water, Jamie finally fell asleep. Lila stood in his doorway, watching his chest rise and fall, the nightlight casting crane-shaped shadows on his wall. Her phone showed 17 emails from work, 2 missed calls from board members, 1 text from Danny asking if she was okay. She ignored them all, moving closer to her sleeping son. His face was peaceful, one hand curled around the blue crane, so small, so fragile, so determined to believe the world could be good. She knelt beside his bed, smoothing his hair, and whispered into the darkness, I will not let them break you. The promise hung in the air like a prayer, like a battle cry, like a mother's love made manifest. Outside, Monday night settled over Maple Ridge, but in Jamie's room, war had been quietly declared. Thursday morning brought rain and revelations. Lila sat in her office at Heartworks, staring at documents her property lawyer had quietly obtained. Walsh Holdings had purchased 3 buildings on Main Street in the past month, all cash deals, all on the same block. The block where Danny's dojo stood. They're offering triple market value, her lawyer explained over the phone. The barbershop already sold. The bookstore's considering. Only holdouts are the dojo and that little bakery. How long does Danny's lease run? Month to month. Been that way for 5 years. Landlord could give him 30 days notice any time. After she hung up, Lila pulled up the facility's contract proposal. Walsh Holdings would manage all district construction for the next decade. The profit margins were razor thin, suspicious for a company that never took bad deals, unless the real profit wasn't in the contract itself, unless it was in controlling what got built and where. Her assistant knocked. "Your son's school is calling." Lila's heart dropped. "Transfer it." But it was just the nurse. Jamie had a stomachache. Could she pick him up? In the car, Jamie sat hunched in the passenger seat, arms wrapped around his middle. The rain made everything gray, the streets, the sky, even her son's face. "Real stomachache or scared stomachache?" Lila asked gently. "Both." She pulled into their driveway but didn't get out. The rain drummed on the roof, creating a private world. "Talk to me, baby." Jamie's words came in a rush. Cole said his dad told him the champions are just for show, that once people stop paying attention, they'll go away, and everything will go back to normal, and then, his voice cracked, and then it'll be worse because I made trouble. "You didn't make trouble. You told the truth." "Cole says that's the same thing." Lila wanted to argue but couldn't. In Cole's world, in Gideon Walsh's world, truth and trouble were often identical. "Are you scared, Mama?" The question caught her off guard. Why would I be scared? "Because you check the locks 3 times now, and you look out the window a lot. And yesterday when your phone rang during dinner, your hands shook." 8 years old and already reading her like a book. She pulled him close, his head fitting perfectly under her chin. Sometimes adults have to do scary things to protect what matters. "Like Mr. Danny protecting me?" "Exactly like that." Jamie was quiet for a moment, then, "I wish Dad was here." "Me too, baby. Me too." Friday evening arrived with an invitation. Danny had texted Thursday night. "Community dinner at New Hope tomorrow. Pastor June makes legendary chili. You and Jamie should come." They almost didn't go. Lila had reports to review. Jamie had been quiet all day, but something about Danny's simple invitation, no pressure, just possibility, drew them out. New Hope Church sat on the old side of town, its white steeple reaching toward stars hidden by clouds. The fellowship hall blazed with light and voices. Long tables covered in checkered cloths, mismatched chairs, the smell of cornbread and spice. "Jamie," Sophia waved from across the room, "come see what I'm teaching the little kids." Jamie looked up at his mother, uncertain. "Go on," Lila encouraged. "I'll be right here." She watched him weave between tables, saw Sophia's arm go around his shoulders, saw him smile for the first time in days. "He's safe here." Danny appeared beside her, holding 2 bowls of chili. Everyone in this room would stand between him and harm. They found seats at a table with Pastor June, an elderly veteran named Eugene, and a young mother bouncing a baby. Conversation flowed easy as water. Eugene's stories of Danny's first fumbling attempts at kata, the young mother's gratitude for the dojo's free after-school program, Pastor June's gentle teasing about the church softball team's losing streak. "Danny's our best hitter," Pastor June said, "but he keeps trying to let the other team win." "Competition isn't about crushing opponents," Danny protested, grinning. "It's about everyone getting better. That why you haven't won a game all season?" The table erupted in laughter. Even Lila found herself relaxing, the week's weight lifting slightly. This was what community felt like, not corporate boardrooms or strategic alliances, but shared food and gentle jokes and knowing someone would catch you if you fell. Jamie returned, breathless with excitement. "Sophia's teaching us escape moves. Look!" He demonstrated a wrist release, face serious with concentration. "Every kid should know how to get away," Sophia said, appearing behind him. "Just in case." The words cast a shadow, reminding them why they were really here, why a church dinner felt like a fortress, why even laughter carried an edge of defiance. Later, as they walked to the car, Jamie ran ahead to pet the church cat. Danny and Lila lingered on the steps. "Thank you," she said. "He needed this. I needed this." We all need reminding sometimes that we're not alone. Are we, though? Not alone? She glanced toward Main Street, toward his dojo, sitting vulnerable on that coveted block. "They're coming for you, too. Walsh Holdings." Danny's face didn't change, but something shifted in his stance. "I know. And you're not worried?" "I'm terrified." He said it simply, without shame. "But fear's just information, tells you what matters. And this—" He gestured to the church, the people still visible through windows. "This matters." Jamie called out, holding the cat like a baby. "Can we get a cat, Mama?" "We'll see." Danny smiled. "That's parent code for no. That's parent code for ask me when we're not in crisis." Tuh. They stood there a moment longer, two single parents carrying the world on their shoulders, finding strength in shared understanding. At home, Jamie asleep upstairs, Lila stood at her living room window. The street was quiet, too quiet. A car she didn't recognize was parked 3 houses down, engine running. Her phone buzzed. An email from a board member. Heard Walsh Holdings might pull their veteran hiring program if the facility's contract gets complicated. Sure hope that doesn't happen. A threat wrapped in concern. The Maple Ridge Way. She thought about the church dinner, the laughter, the light. Thought about Danny's calm courage, Pastor June's steady faith, Sophia's protective arm around Jamie. Thought about her son practicing escape moves he shouldn't need to know. Through the window she could see the maple trees that gave the town its name, their leaves turning gold in the streetlight. Beautiful and dying, holding on until the last possible moment before letting go. The car down the street finally drove away. But another would come. They always did. She had 2 choices. Speak out, risk Heartworks, risk their safety, risk everything she'd built. Or stay silent, keep her head down, play the game, let the intimidation continue. Her reflection in the window looked tired. But behind the exhaustion, something else flickered. The same thing she'd seen in Danny's eyes at the church. Not courage exactly, something quieter, something that whispered, "Some things matter more than safety." Upstairs, Jamie coughed in his sleep. Outside, Maple Ridge settled into another Friday night, secrets buried under politeness, power flowing through invisible channels. Monday would come. Decisions would be demanded, but tonight she stood at her window and let herself imagine a third option, one where truth and safety weren't mutually exclusive, where standing up didn't mean standing alone, one where David actually beat Goliath. The maple trees rustled in the wind, holding on, holding on. Monday arrived wrapped in gray clouds that pressed low over Maple Ridge. Lila paced her office at Heartworks, watching the clock tick toward noon. She'd already called Danny, asking him to come during lunch. "It's important," she'd said, and he hadn't questioned it. When he arrived, she noticed how out of place he looked among the chrome and glass of her corporate world. His flannel shirt and worn boots belonged to a different universe than her tailored blazer and polished desk, yet somehow he made the space feel more real. "Coffee?" She gestured to the machine in the corner. "Thanks." He studied the walls while she poured, blueprints for factory expansions, photos of ribbon cuttings, and everywhere, pictures of employees. Veterans in hard hats, former addicts operating machinery, second-chance stories frozen in frames. "You really built something here," he said. "We all build what we can." She handed him the mug, their fingers brushing briefly. But sometimes what we build gets threatened. She pulled up her laptop, showing him the email trail. Property records, board pressure. The web Walsh Holdings had spun around them both. Danny read in silence, his face giving nothing away. Finally, he leaned back. They're squeezing from all sides. Your dojo, my company, the school. She rubbed her temples. And Jamie's caught in the middle. Not just Jamie, all the kids. They sat with that truth for a moment. Outside, factory machines hummed their steady rhythm. Jobs for people who needed them, purpose for those who'd lost it. All of it balanced on a knife's edge. We need allies, Danny said. Can't fight this alone. Who can we trust? He counted on his fingers. Pastor June. Definitely. Maybe Principal Pike if we approach it right. Some of the parents from the Courage Clinic. The champions, of course. Pike's terrified of losing funding. Aren't we all? Danny's smile held no humor. But fear makes people do one of two things, hide or fight. Sometimes you just need to show them which one leaves them standing. That afternoon they met at New Hope Church. Pastor June had cleared her schedule, and Principal Pike arrived 10 minutes late, checking over her shoulder like a teenager sneaking out. This is about the children, Pastor June began, her voice gentle but firm. Not politics, not money. Children. Pike shifted in her pew. Easy to say when you don't have a district breathing down your neck. Is it? Pastor June's husband had been a veteran, lost to illness 2 years back. She knew about pressure, about choosing between impossible options. Every Sunday I stand up there and talk about faith. But faith without works is dead. This is our works, Lorraine. Danny spread papers on the church's worn wooden table. Here's what we know. Walsh Holdings wants my block for condos. They're leveraging the facility's contract to silence opposition, and the superintendent's son is leading the bullying. Allegedly, Pike said quickly. I saw it myself, Danny replied, calm but unwavering. First morning, at the bus stop. Lila pulled out her phone, showing them saved messages. Parents have been reaching out. They're scared too, but they want to act. We just need to give them a framework. What kind of framework? Pike asked. Unity Week, but real this time. Not just posters and assemblies. Actual programs. The champions volunteering as lunch monitors. Restorative circles for kids who bully and kids who get bullied. Parent workshops on bystander intervention. Pike's face cycled through emotions. Hope, fear, calculation. The board would never. The board doesn't have to approve everything, Pastor June interrupted. PTAs have autonomy. Churches can sponsor programs. Private businesses can volunteer. They spent the next hour mapping it out. Who could offer what? Which parents might step up? How to frame it as community enrichment rather than crisis response. Pike finally nodded, slowly. I can't be public about this, but I won't stop it either. It was something. Not enough, but something. While the adults plotted, Sophia worked with Jamie in the dojo's smaller training room. Stance matters, she said, adjusting his feet. Not for fighting, for feeling strong. Jamie tried again, wobbly but determined. Like this? Better. Now escape drill. I grab your wrist, you remember what we practiced. He twisted, pulled, stepped back. Not perfect, but improving. Good, see, you're not helpless, you're learning. But they're bigger. So, I'm smaller than lots of people. Doesn't stop me from winning competitions. She showed him her trophy wall, gold medals, ribbons, photos of her standing victorious. Size is just one factor. Smart beats big, calm beats angry, and you're smart, Jamie. Really smart. He glowed under her praise. My mom says that too. Moms know things. Mine knew things too before. She trailed off, then shook it away. Point is, you're going to be fine. Better than fine. That evening, the main dojo filled with families. Monday night was beginner class, white belts and nervous smiles. Jamie stood in line with other 8-year-olds trying to copy Danny's movements exactly. Tonight's special, Danny announced. We have students ready for their first rank. One by one, he called names. Kids stepped forward, demonstrated basic forms, received their new belts. Parents clapped. Phones recorded. Normal dojo life, except for the undercurrent. Everyone knew why this mattered more now. Jamie Hart. Jamie walked to the center, hands trembling slightly. He bowed, performed his routine, basic but precise, showing weeks of practice. Danny nodded approval. Jamie, what's our dojo promise? Strength protects. We fight for others, not against them. Why? Because, Jamie glanced at his mother, then back at Danny. Because real champions make people feel safe. Danny smiled, holding out the white belt. Then, you're ready for this. Jamie accepted it like treasure. The room erupted in applause. Lila wiped her eyes, trying to hide it. Sophia whistled loud enough to echo. Later, as families dispersed, Lila helped Jamie tie his new belt correctly. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Mr. Danny says I'm getting stronger. You are, in all the ways that matter. She looked across the dojo at Danny, who was straightening equipment, preparing for tomorrow. Their eyes met. A nod of understanding passed between them, parent to parent, warrior to warrior. The alliance was forming, the resistance taking shape. But outside, in expensive cars and shadowed offices, other forces were moving too. The Marine knelt beside the practice mat, his prosthetic hand resting on his knee. Around him, 20 kids sat cross-legged, Jamie among them, clutching his newest crane. They told me I didn't belong, Marcus said, voice steady. First black man in my unit, called me names I won't repeat here, said I'd never make it through basic. What did you do? A girl asked. Got up earlier, ran harder, studied longer, not to prove them right or wrong, to prove something to myself. He flexed his prosthetic fingers, the mechanical movement precise. Lost this in Kandahar. They said I was done. Guess what? You weren't, Jamie whispered. Exactly. Found a new way to serve, teaching kids like you that strength isn't about what you have. It's about what you do with what's left. Tuesday brought Chen, the one-legged athlete. She set up balance beams in the playground during lunch, her prosthetic decorated with lightning bolts. Balance isn't about being perfect, she explained, hopping on her single leg, longer than most kids could stand on two. It's about adjusting. Watch. She swayed, caught herself, swayed again, never falling. Life knocks you sideways? Adjust. Someone pushes? Redirect that energy. She beckoned Jamie forward. Try. He wobbled immediately. Good. Wobbling means you're learning. Falling means you're trying. Not trying. That's the only real failure. By the end of lunch, Jamie managed 3 seconds. Chen high-fived him like he'd won Olympic gold. Wednesday's visitor moved like water. Master Takeda, 73 years old, demonstrated Aikido principles with Sophia as his partner. She attacks, he narrated, as Sophia grabbed his wrist. I don't fight her strength. I guide it past me. A gentle spiral, and Sophia flowed harmlessly by. Jamie-kun, come! Jamie approached nervously. The old man's hands were soft as paper, but when Jamie pushed against them, it felt like pushing air. No resistance, but somehow he couldn't advance. This is the secret, Master Takeda said. Water defeats rock not by force, but by flowing around, over, through. Be water, Jamie-kun. I don't understand. You will. Keep folding your birds. Each crane is practice in patience, in redirecting paper into beauty. Same principle. Thursday, the peace partners noticed change. Cole's group still clustered together, but they'd stopped the obvious taunting. Other kids began including Jamie in 4 square games. Small victories. Maya, a champion who'd served in Afghanistan, shared her story during after-school program. Fear's just information, she told them. Tells you to pay attention, doesn't tell you to freeze. I was scared every day overseas. Used it to stay sharp, keep my squad safe. Were you scared of dying? A boy asked. Scared of not living, Maya corrected. Different thing. Scared of wasting my chance to matter. Jamie raised his hand. Do I matter, even though I'm small? Size of your body's got nothing on the size of your heart. And yours? She tapped his chest gently. Huge. Each afternoon, Lila found reasons to leave work early. She told herself it was to pick up Jamie, but really, she wanted to witness this transformation. Her son, who'd been shrinking into himself, was unfurling like his paper cranes. He's different, she told Danny Thursday evening, as Jamie practiced forms with other white belts. Same kid, just remembering who he is. They stood side by side, not quite touching. She noticed things. How Danny's hands never fully relaxed, always ready. How he tracked every child in the room while seeming to watch none. How his voice softened when he corrected form, making adjustment feel like encouragement. You were military too? Army, 15 years. Why'd you leave? Sophia needed me whole. War takes pieces of you, had to stop before there wasn't enough left to be her dad. Lila understood that. After her husband's death, she'd rebuilt herself piece by piece for Jamie. The champions respect you. We respect each other. That's the difference. Friday night, New Hope Church gymnasium filled with folding tables and crock-pots. The monthly potluck drew half the town, church members or not. Everyone was welcome. Pastor June insisted on that. Jamie sat with Sophia at the kids' table, his backpack beside him. Want to see? He unzipped it carefully, revealing dozens of paper cranes in every color imaginable. Whoa, you made all these? This week, yeah. Master Takeda said each one makes me stronger. How? Jamie considered. Because I'm choosing to create instead of being scared. Each crane is me saying I won't let them make me small. Sophia studied him with new respect. That's pretty deep for 8. I'm almost 9. Still. Across the room, Lila ladled Pastor June's famous chili while Danny helped set up more chairs. They kept finding reasons to pass each other, exchanging smiles that lingered. Your boy's healing, Pastor June observed, appearing at Lila's elbow. The champions are helping. Not just them. He sees you fighting for him, quietly, carefully, but fighting. Children know when they're loved, that fierce. Lila watched Jamie teaching another child to fold paper, patient as Master Takeda. I'm trying. Honey, you're succeeding. Danny approached with empty bowls for refilling. Their fingers brushed in the handoff. Neither pulled away quickly. Save me a dance later? He asked quietly. There's dancing? When the tables get cleared. Nothing fancy, just community. She nodded, warmth spreading through her chest. As evening deepened, Jamie's cranes multiplied. Other kids brought paper, wanting to learn. Soon a small production line formed, children teaching children, creating a flock of paper birds. For the gym, Jamie announced. We can hang them everywhere, show that we're not scared anymore. The adults exchanged glances, from the mouths of babes. Monday morning brought the kind of gray that pressed down on Maple Ridge like a heavy blanket. Lila discovered the first signs of trouble during her morning coffee scroll through social media. The post had already been shared 47 times. Anyone else think it's convenient that Heartworks CEO suddenly cares about bullying right when she needs good PR? Using veterans as props while her company gets tax breaks. Shameful. The comments underneath were worse. Anonymous accounts with no profile pictures, all saying variations of the same thing. Orchestrated. Deliberate. Her phone buzzed. Danny texting, "You seeing this?" Before she could respond, Jamie appeared in the kitchen doorway, backpack sagging off one shoulder. "Mom, are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart, why?" "Kids were talking at the bus stop. They said you did something bad with the soldiers." The coffee mug trembled in her hand. She set it down carefully. "I didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes people say mean things when they're scared of change." "Like coal?" "Like coal. But worse because adults should know better." Danny found the flyers stapled to telephone poles along Main Street. Bold black letters on white paper. Shield and Shalom Dojo, teaching violence to your children. Below, a grainy photo from last week's demonstration, cropped to show only the moment when Maya had demonstrated a defensive throw. Out of context, it looked aggressive. He tore down 7 before Sophia called. "Dad, they're all over school too." "You okay?" "I'm fine, but Principal Pike wants to see you, like now." The dojo's voicemail already had 3 messages from concerned parents. The careful community they'd been building, brick by brick, suddenly felt fragile, as origami. Principal Pike's office smelled like vanilla candles, trying to mask anxiety. She sat behind her desk, fingers laced, knuckles white. "I've had 6 calls this morning." Danny remained standing. "From?" "People who matter. To the school's budget." She couldn't meet his eyes. "They're concerned about the message we're sending." "Which is?" "That's the problem. The message is getting twisted. Someone's making sure of that." "Someone like Gideon Walsh?" Pike's silence was answer enough. "The Peace Partners program has been helping," Danny said. "You've seen the difference." "I have, but I also have to keep this school funded. If major donors pull out." "Then you explain that protecting children matters more than their comfort." "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." Pike finally looked up. "They want the veterans scaled back. No more demonstrations, no more visibility that could be misinterpreted." "You mean no more standing up to bullies with connections?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Across town, Gideon Walsh sat in his study, afternoon light cutting through crystal decanters. Eli's chessboard remained on the side table where the boy had left it Saturday afternoon. Their games had become regular. Gideon told himself it was charity, mentoring a bright kid from a disadvantaged background. The truth sat heavier. The boy moved pieces like Gideon did, thought 3 moves ahead like Gideon did, had the same tell when concentrating, tongue barely visible between lips. The paternity test kit remained in his desk drawer, unopened. Opening it meant admitting what he already knew. His phone buzzed. The communications director for Walsh Holdings. "Sir, the online campaign is gaining traction." "Good. Should we continue escalating?" Gideon stared at the chessboard. Eli had been learning the Sicilian defense, said it was about creating opportunities from defensive positions. "Sir?" "Continue as planned." He hung up, but his hand lingered on the chess pieces. Moved the knight, Eli's favorite piece. "It can jump over problems," the boy had explained, "go where others can't." The guilt sat in his chest like swallowed glass. That evening, Jamie was quieter than usual. He picked at his spaghetti, folding his napkin into smaller and smaller squares. "What's wrong, baby?" Kids were talking at lunch. They said Mr. Danny might have to close the dojo, that you might lose your job. "Who said that?" "Cole's friends. They said their parents told them." Lila kept her voice steady. "People are upset because we're changing things. Change scares some people." "Are they right, though? Will everyone leave?" She pulled him onto her lap, even though he was getting too big for it. "Remember what Maya said? Fear is just information." He nodded against her shoulder. "Well, I'm listening to what the fear says and using it to be smarter, but I'm not letting it stop me." What if the mean boys come back worse? If Mr. Danny and the champions have to leave? The question she'd been dreading, the one that kept her awake, staring at ceiling shadows. "Then we'll handle it. Together." "But you're scared too, I can tell." Children saw everything, especially when adults tried to hide it. "Yes," she admitted, "I'm scared, but I'm more scared of what happens if we don't try, if we let bullies, big or small, decide how we live." Jamie was quiet for a long moment, then, "Can I sleep in your bed tonight?" "Of course." Later, after Jamie's breathing had deepened into sleep, Lila lay awake texting with Danny. "They're coming after both of us now." "I know. You okay?" Jamie's scared. "So's Sophia, but she's also mad. Says we're teaching her to stand up by standing down." "Smart girl." "Too smart. Gets it from her mother." A pause, then, "We could back off. Let things cool down." "Could we? Really?" Lila looked at her sleeping son, one hand still clutching the paper crane he'd taken to bed. No, we couldn't. Then we need a better plan. Outside wind rattled windows like something trying to get in, or maybe something trying to escape. 2 weeks had transformed the school gym. Paper cranes hung from fishing line like suspended hope, hundreds of them catching gymnasium lights. Veterans from Heartworks had spent the morning setting up chairs in perfect rows. Someone had donated chrysanthemums, gold and burgundy, that lined the stage. The crowd came early, grandmothers with walkers, young families with strollers, teenagers pretending not to care. The parking lot overflowed onto side streets. Bigger than the Christmas concert, Pastor June murmured to Lila, squeezing her hand. This means something. The champions entered in formation, their white GIs crisp as fresh snow. 25 different faces, black, Latino, Asian, Native, white, but moving with one purpose. The youngest was 17, the oldest 72. Some bore visible scars. One adjusted his prosthetic before taking position. The kata began in silence. No music, just breathing. Synchronized breathing that filled the space like prayer. Their movements flowed, blocks becoming strikes, becoming blocks again. Defense and offense inseparable. The wheelchaired veteran moved his upper body in perfect time with the standing champions, his hands cutting air with practiced grace. Jamie watched from the front row, eyes wide. Sophia had painted a small crane on his cheek with face paint. He wore his white belt over his button-down shirt. The kata built, movements sharper, faster. The champion's feet struck the floor in unison, thunder without violence. In the doorway, half hidden by shadow, Gideon Walsh stood perfectly still. His usual armor of expensive suits seemed suddenly thin. When the kata ended, the silence held for 3 heartbeats. Then the gym erupted, standing ovation that rolled like a wave from front to back. Danny's voice carried over the microphone. Strength isn't about domination, it's about discipline, protection, community. Sophia stepped onto the mat, bowing to Jamie. He scrambled up, remembering to bow back. They'd practiced this routine dozens of times, but his hands still trembled slightly. She attacked first. Slow, telegraphed moves Jamie could handle. He blocked, redirected, used her momentum against her. When she fell, he immediately offered his hand to help her up. The crowd caught the lesson. Winning meant everyone standing at the end. "That's my son," Lila whispered to Pastor June, pride cracking her voice. "That's everyone's son tonight," June whispered back. Principal Pike introduced Jamie for his essay reading. He climbed the stage steps, paper shaking in his small hands. The microphone looked enormous next to him. Small and Strong, by Jamie Hart. His voice wobbled, then steadied. People think small means weak, but origami cranes are small, seeds are small, drops of water are small, but they can carve canyons. He talked about being cornered at the bus stop, about feeling invisible, about learning that strength came in different forms. Sometimes it looked like Mr. Danny stepping in, sometimes like his mom working late to keep people employed, sometimes like folding another crane after someone crushed the first one. I'm still small, but I'm learning to be strong in small ways, and maybe that's enough. The gym went quiet. Then someone started clapping. Cole's mother, tears streaming down her face. She was on her feet, pulling her reluctant husband up with her. The applause spread until Jamie was bowing to a standing ovation, his essay ribbon clutched in one hand. During the break, Cole's mother found Lila by the water fountain. "I'm sorry, I didn't want to know what Cole was doing. His father, we teach them wrong things sometimes, thinking it makes them tough. Kids learn what they see. Then maybe they can learn better things too." She paused. "Cole's been different since the champions came, quieter, thinking more. Maybe that's a start." Pastor June led the closing hymn, her voice carrying the melody while the crowd found harmony. "Wade in the water." The old spiritual filled the space, generations singing together. Some knew every verse, others hummed along, but the sound unified them. Danny found Lila during the last chorus. They stood side by side, not touching, but close enough to feel each other's warmth. "We did something tonight," he said quietly. "We started something," she corrected. Across the gym, Gideon remained in his doorway. When the hymn ended, when people began gathering coats and children, he slipped away. But not before Lila saw his face, the expression of a man recognizing something he'd lost, or maybe never had. Jamie fell asleep before they reached the car. The SA ribbon wound around his fingers. Lila carried him, his weight nothing compared to what she'd been carrying for weeks. In the parking lot, families lingered. Veterans exchanged handshakes with parents who'd been strangers 2 hours ago. Children practiced champion stances under streetlights. The November air bit sharp, but nobody hurried. "Mom?" Jamie mumbled against her shoulder, half awake. "Yeah, baby?" "Did I do good?" "You did perfect." He settled back into sleep, and Lila stood for a moment in the parking lot, watching her community, their community, refuse to scatter into the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tonight, they'd stood together. The SA ribbon fluttered in Jamie's grip like a small flag of victory. The video hit social media at 6:47 a.m. Shocking, veteran champion attacks student at local school. The clip ran 18 seconds. Danny's hand extending toward a boy's shoulder, a jerky camera movement, the boy falling backward, Danny looming over him, cut to black. By 7:15 it had 3,000 shares. Lila saw it during her morning coffee, phone buzzing with notifications. Her mug slipped, coffee spreading across quarterly reports. She grabbed her keys, still in yesterday's clothes, but her phone rang. Principal Pike. "I have no choice. The superintendent's ordering immediate suspension of the dojo partnership. Parents are already calling." "It's fake. You know Danny, What I know doesn't matter when I have 100 angry emails and the superintendent breathing down my neck." The line went dead. At Shield and Shalom Dojo, Danny stood in the empty training room holding a manila envelope. The demolition notice gave them 30 days. December 15th, just before Christmas. The door chimed. Not Sophia returning from her morning run, but Jerry, his landlord's property manager. "I'm sorry, Danny. Walsh Holdings bought the whole block last month. We just found out ourselves. The lease runs through next year. Check the fine print. 60-day termination clause for redevelopment. They're giving you half that as a courtesy." Jerry left quickly, unable to meet Danny's eyes. Danny's phone erupted with messages. Parents canceling kids' classes. 3 champions asking if they should stay away. A reporter wanting comment on the assault video. He sat on the mat where yesterday dozens of students had practiced. The belt rack stretched along the wall, white to black, each one representing someone's journey. Photos covered another wall, veterans who'd found purpose here, kids who'd found courage. Sophia burst through the door, face flushed from running. "Dad, I saw the video. That's not even you. The angle's all wrong, and they cut out Marcus breaking up the fight between those 2 kids." "I know." "Then tell people." "Tell them what? The truth? Since when has that mattered more than what people want to believe?" She'd never heard him sound defeated. Not after Mom died. Not after the VA lost his paperwork 3 times. Never. By noon, the video had morphed through digital telephone. Comments claimed Danny had a violent history. Someone posted a photoshopped image of him with gang tattoos. A Facebook group called Parents Against Dangerous Veterans gained 500 members in 2 hours. The superintendent held an emergency press conference on the school steps. "Student safety is our absolute priority. Until a full investigation is completed, all non-certified personnel are suspended from school grounds. This includes the so-called Peace Partners program." Behind him, Cole Benson stood with his father, looking uncomfortable but silent. At Heartworks, Lila's assistant knocked nervously. "Ms. Hart? There's a Mr. Walsh on line 1. Gideon's voice oozed false concern. "Lila, I'm hearing disturbing things about this veteran you've been associating with. For your company's reputation." She hung up. Her phone immediately rang again, the bank this time. "Ms. Hart, given recent developments and your public association with controversial figures, we're conducting an emergency review of HeartWorks' credit line." "You can't be serious." "The decision's been made. You have 72 hours to provide additional collateral or pay the balance in full." After work, Lila drove straight to the dojo. She found Danny sitting in the dark, eviction notice still in his hands. Jamie was in the corner, practicing his champion stance alone, whispering the words Danny had taught him. "Strong enough to be kind, strong enough to be kind." "Jamie, honey, get your coat." "5 more minutes, Mom? Mr. Danny said practice makes permanent." Danny looked up at her. His face held no anger, just exhaustion. They released the video at optimal viral time, professional edit job. The blog's owned by a Walsh subsidiary. I checked. The eviction was filed weeks ago, just waiting for the right moment. Even the superintendent's press conference was pre-written. "We'll fight it, get the real video, hire lawyers." With what money? "You just lost your credit line. Don't look surprised. Bad news travels fast here. I lose the dojo in 30 days. The champions are being harassed online. Parents think I'm dangerous." Jamie walked over, still holding his stance position. "Mr. Danny, are the bad guys winning?" Danny knelt to Jamie's level, the same way he had that first morning at the bus stop. "Sometimes they win battles, buddy. Doesn't mean they win the war." "So we keep fighting? We keep standing." Jamie nodded solemnly, then returned to his corner to practice. Lila sat beside Danny on the mat. Outside, evening traffic passed, oblivious to the collapse happening inside these walls. "They coordinated everything," Danny said quietly. "The video drops, creating panic. Superintendent bans us from schools. Walsh forecloses on the block. Your funding disappears all in one morning." He turned to her, and she saw something that chilled her more than anger would have: resignation. "They're coming for all of us." In the corner, Jamie continued his stance, small voice determined in the darkness. "Strong enough to be kind, strong enough to be kind." The words echoed in the empty dojo like a prayer against the avalanche. 3 days after the video dropped, HeartWorks' parking lot held more news vans than employee cars. Lila stood before her senior staff in the conference room. Blueprints for the new Veteran Training Center spread uselessly across the table. "Effective immediately, First National has called our loan. We have 48 hours to pay in full, or they seize assets." Marcus, her head of operations and a former Marine, slammed his prosthetic hand on the table. "That's impossible. We've never missed a payment." They cited reputational risk. "Apparently my association with Danny makes us unstable." Through the window, she watched protesters gathering outside Shield and Shalom Dojo 3 blocks away. Their signs read, "Violent Veterans Out," and "Protect Our Kids from Fraud." Someone had bussed them in. Their matching T-shirts were too new, their chants too rehearsed. Inside the dojo, Danny stood at the window watching them. Sophia sat on the mat behind him, scrolling through her phone with increasing horror. "Dad, they're posting our address, our actual home address." "Pack a bag. You're staying with Pastor June tonight." "I'm not leaving you." "Please," his voice cracked. "I need to know you're safe." She'd never heard him beg before. Across town in his mansion, Gideon Walsh sat frozen at his mahogany desk. The paternity test results lay before him, Eli's DNA matching his with 99.9% certainty. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You have 1 hour to go public, or we do it for you." "Who is this?" The line went dead. He grabbed his keys, racing toward Marisol's apartment. He had to warn her, had to. The news trucks were already there. Reporters surrounded Marisol's building like vultures. Someone had leaked everything: the test, the years of denial, even her employment records at the Walsh estate. "Ms. Vega, did Gideon Walsh pay you for silence?" "How long have you hidden his son?" "Is this about money?" Inside her apartment, Marisol tried to shield Eli from the windows. Cameras pressed against the glass. Someone was pounding on the door. "Mom?" Eli's voice trembled. Why are they saying those things? The pounding intensified. The walls felt like they were closing in. The room spun. Marisol's knees buckled. "Mom? Mom!" Eli caught her as she fell, her body going limp in his thin arms. He fumbled for his phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "Please help! My mom collapsed and there's people everywhere, and—" Through the window, camera flashes exploded like fireworks as paramedics forced through the crowd. That evening, Lila arrived home exhausted to find the front door ajar. "Jamie?" The house stood empty. His backpack sat by the door, homework half finished on the kitchen table. An origami crane lay beside his pencil. "Jamie!" She tore through every room, checked the backyard, the garage, even the crawl space he'd hidden in during thunderstorms. Gone. Her phone rang. Danny. "Lila, he's here. He's safe." She drove through red lights, her hands white on the wheel. The protesters had gone home for dinner, leaving their signs like tombstones outside the dojo. Inside, she found Jamie curled beneath the belt rack, fast asleep. An origami crane clutched in his small fist. He'd tucked himself into the corner where the white belts began, surrounded by the photos of every student who'd ever trained here. Danny knelt beside him, keeping watch. He walked 3 miles, said he wanted to be somewhere safe. Lila gathered her son into her arms, his weight both unbearable and necessary. He stirred but didn't wake, mumbling something about champions. Her tears came then, silent and unstoppable. Sophia sat against the wall, her packed bag beside her. "Mom would have loved him," she said quietly. She always said the quietest kids were the bravest. Danny's phone lit up with another eviction notice, this one marked expedited in red letters. 20 days now, not 30. Outside, evening fell over Maple Ridge. The streets that had seemed so welcoming when Lila first moved here now felt hostile, full of shadows and whispers. "Mr. Walsh was at the hospital," Sophia said, still scrolling through her phone. "Someone posted video. He was trying to see Ms. Vega, but security threw him out. The comments are saying—" She stopped, her face paling. "What?" Danny asked. "They're calling for investigations. Into Heartworks. Into the dojo. Into you, Ms. Hart. They want child services to look into whether Jamie's safe." Lila's arms tightened around her sleeping son. The dojo's fluorescent lights flickered, throwing strange shadows across the empty mats. 3 weeks ago, this room had held 25 champions and a community full of hope. Now it held 3 adults, 2 children, and the weight of a town turning against them. Danny reached over and switched off the lights, leaving only the emergency exit sign glowing red. They sat together in near darkness, listening to Jamie's steady breathing and the distant sound of sirens. Everything they'd built was crumbling, and tomorrow would bring more destruction. But tonight, in this empty dojo that would soon be rubble, they held on to each other and refused to let go. Morning light crept through Lila's kitchen windows, catching the steam from 2 untouched coffee cups. She'd called in sick for the first time in 3 years. Her assistant had paused, then asked if everything was all right. Everything was not all right. Danny sat across from her, dark circles beneath his eyes. He'd spent the night on her couch after carrying Jamie inside, neither of them willing to wake the boy who'd walked 3 miles seeking safety. "Black coffee?" she'd offered earlier. "Like my prospects," he'd answered without humor. Now they sat in silence while Jamie worked at the far end of the table, folding crane after crane from printer paper. His small fingers moved with practiced precision, creating a growing flock of white birds. "Sophia's at school?" Lila finally asked. "Insisted on going. Said someone needs to show up, prove we're not hiding." Jamie looked up. "Is Sophia brave, Mr. Danny?" "The bravest." "Braver than the champions?" Danny's jaw tightened. "Different kind of brave, buddy. The champions are brave with their bodies. Sophia's brave with her heart." Jamie returned to his folding. Paper whispered against paper. Danny stared into his coffee. "I'm thinking of leaving." The words hung between them like a blade. "After the demolition starts, Before they can do worse to Sophia, my sister lives in Austin. She's been asking us to move there since—" He stopped, unable to say, "since Maria died." "You can't," Lila's voice came out raw. 20 days until they tear down the dojo. The video's been shared 16,000 times. I counted. 16,000 people think I hurt a child. It's doctored. People will see—" "When? After they've destroyed everything we built? After Sophia gets harassed at school? After they come for you too?" Jamie's crane fell from his fingers. "You're leaving?" They both turned. The boy's eyes were wide, betrayed. "Nothing's decided," Lila said quickly. "But you said champions don't run." Jamie's voice cracked. "You said we stand up. We protect people." Danny knelt beside Jamie's chair. "Sometimes protecting people means getting them away from danger." "That's not what you taught us. You said—" Jamie's breath hitched. "You said strength means protecting the weak. But if you leave, who protects us?" The question gutted the room. Lila's phone buzzed. Another email from the bank. Final notice on the credit line. 48 hours to pay in full or face immediate foreclosure proceedings. "Heartworks might not survive anyway," she admitted, the words like glass in her throat. "Without the credit line, I can't make payroll next week. 73 people. 41 are veterans, 6 are single parents, 4 are recovering—" She stopped. The numbers were people. People who'd trusted her. "Mom?" Jamie's voice went small. "Are we going to be okay?" She pulled him onto her lap, feeling his bird-light bones. "We'll figure it out." Like Dad would have? The question stopped her heart. Jamie rarely mentioned Marcus anymore. 3 years since the accident, and her son had learned to swallow his father's absence like medicine. "Yeah," she whispered, "like Dad would have." Danny's phone rang. He stepped onto the back porch to answer, his voice low and tense through the glass. Jamie returned to his cranes. Fold, crease, shape, fold, crease, shape. "Why cranes?" Lila asked. Ms. Tanaka at the library said if you fold 1,000, you get a wish. What would you wish for? Jamie thought carefully. For everyone to stop being mean, for Mr. Danny to stay, for Ms. Marisol to feel better, for that boy Eli to have a dad who loves him. He paused. That's more than one wish. Maybe you need more cranes. I have 47 so far. Only 953 to go. Across town, Gideon Walsh sat in his corner office. The leaked paternity results spread across his desk. The headlines screamed variations of the same truth. Millionaire's secret son. 13 years of lies. The maid's child. His phone had been ringing all morning. Board members, reporters, his ex-wife from California, somehow gleeful about his downfall. But the only call he wanted wouldn't come. Marisol remained unreachable, hidden somewhere with Eli while recovering from her collapse. He'd gone to chess club yesterday, hoping Eli might appear. The boy had come, taken one look at Gideon across the room, and walked out. The chess teacher had stared at Gideon with such disgust he'd left too. 13 years of Tuesdays, of watching Eli grow from across careful distances, of anonymous birthday gifts and scholarship funds, of telling himself it was enough. His desk phone rang, his secretary's nervous voice. Pastor June is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but send her away. She says she'll wait. He hung up. The paternity report stared back at him. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Such clinical language for a life-shattering truth. He'd been 25 when Marisol started working at the estate. Young, married, drunk on his father's money, and his own importance. She'd been beautiful in her quiet way, dignified, despite scrubbing his floors. One night. One terrible, wonderful night that he'd spent 13 years pretending never happened. His office door opened. Pastor June walked in without invitation, settling into the chair across from him like she belonged there. Your secretary stepped away, she said mildly. Coffee run, I think. I'm busy. With what? Counting the money you'll save by demolishing Danny's dojo? Calculating how many veterans Lila will have to fire when Heartworks closes? Get out. She didn't move. Eli needs his father. He has a mother. Who collapsed yesterday because you left her to carry your secret alone for 13 years? The words hit like fists. What do you want from me? The truth, out loud, in public, with action behind it. It'll destroy everything I've built. No, Pastor June said, standing. It'll destroy everything you've hidden behind. She moved toward the door, then paused. Danny's at Lila's house right now, planning to leave town. Lila's about to lose everything she's worked for, and you're sitting here, worried about your reputation. She turned back, her eyes steady and sad. Courage without compassion is a hammer. It breaks things without building. Compassion without courage is just a wish, sweet but powerless. You need both, Gideon. The question is whether you'll find them before it's too late. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Gideon sat alone in his corner office, surrounded by the empire he'd built and the truth he'd buried, while across town a small boy folded paper cranes and wished for miracles that seemed impossibly far away. The dojo smelled of sweat and determination. 25 champions sat cross-legged on the mats, their faces illuminated by the harsh glare of news vans parked outside. Through the windows, camera crews jostled for position, their lights turning the evening into false daylight. They're calling me unstable, Danny said quietly. Dangerous. Marcus Chen, the one-legged marathoner, snorted. They called me broken when I came back from Afghanistan. Now I run faster than most people with 2 legs. We've all been called worse, said Teresa Washington, the former Air Force pilot. She pulled out her phone. I've got 3 videos from Unity Night, clear angles showing you helping kids, not hurting them. One by one, the champions produced their phones. Videos from Unity Night, from lunch duty, from the morning demonstrations. Dozens of angles, hundreds of minutes of footage showing Danny's gentle teaching, his careful redirections, his protection of children. I've got the original of that doctored video, said James Okonkwo, the elderly Aikido master. My granddaughter was recording for her social media. Shows exactly what really happened. You stopping 2 kids from fighting, not shoving anyone. The door opened. A young woman in a crisp suit entered, her prosthetic leg visible beneath her skirt hem. Sarah Martinez, she announced, former JAG Corps, current civil rights attorney. My dad trained at this dojo after Vietnam. She set her briefcase on the floor. I'm representing all of you, pro bono. We're going to bury them with truth. Outside, a reporter shouted through a megaphone, demanding Danny come out and explain himself. Let them wait, Sarah said. We build our case first. An hour later, Lila's boardroom at Heartworks had transformed into a command center. The long oak table held laptops, phones, and legal pads. At its center sat Jamie's growing basket of paper cranes, their white wings catching the overhead lights. We have 73 videos, Sarah announced, sorting through files on her laptop, plus 18 parent testimonials and 6 teacher statements supporting Danny's character. Pastor June studied the screen. The media is owned by Walsh Holdings subsidiaries. They won't run our evidence. Then we go around them, Lila said. Direct to social media. Heartworks has 12,000 followers. The dojo has 3,000. Each champion has their own network. Guerrilla truth-telling, Danny murmured. I like it. Jamie sat quietly in the corner folding. His fingers moved with practiced precision, mountain fold, valley fold, pedal fold. Each crane joined its siblings in the basket. How many now? Sophia asked him. 93. Getting closer to your 1,000. Principal Pike shifted uncomfortably. The superintendent called me 6 times today. He wants Danny arrested. For what? Sarah's eyes sharpened. Protecting children? Being brown while teaching martial arts? For creating a threatening environment. So, his son created the threatening environment, Lila said coldly. Cole's been terrorizing younger kids for months. Pike looked down. I know, but the superintendent has power. Oh! So do we, Pastor June interrupted. Different kind of power, the kind that shows up. The room fell quiet except for the whisper of Jamie's paper folding. Across town, Gideon's Mercedes pulled up to a modest duplex. Marisol's home sat dark except for a kitchen light. He'd driven past 3 times before finding the courage to park. His knock was barely audible. Marisol opened the door, her face drawn from days of stress. "No. Please, 5 minutes. You had 13 years of minutes. I know, I was wrong." Something in his voice made her pause. She'd never heard Gideon Walsh admit wrongness before. "Eli doesn't want to see you." "I'll wait." She started to close the door, then stopped. Behind her, Eli appeared in pajamas, a chess set under his arm. "One game," the boy said, "then you leave." They sat at Marisol's kitchen table, the same table where she'd eaten thousands of lonely dinners, raising a brilliant boy who asked why he had no father. The chess pieces stood between them like tiny soldiers. Eli played white. His opening was aggressive, the king's gambit, sacrificing position for attack. "You taught yourself?" Gideon asked. "YouTube, library books." They played in silence. Eli's style was remarkable, creative, unexpected, fearless. Everything Gideon had been at that age before his father beat the creativity out of him with expectations. "Why now?" Eli asked, moving his bishop. The truth came out. "Only because someone leaked it. You wouldn't have said anything." Gideon moved his knight. "No, I wouldn't have." "Why?" The simple question carried 13 years of weight. "Fear," Gideon admitted. "Cowardice. Shame. Of me? Of myself. Of what I'd done. Of what admitting it would cost." Eli castled, protecting his king. "What about what denying it cost us?" Gideon had no answer. They played on. In the 11th move, Eli's queen swept across the board. Check. Gideon studied the position. He could block, delay, fight on. Instead, he tipped his king. "I will make this right," he whispered. "How?" "I don't know yet, but I will." Eli packed up the chess pieces methodically. Mom cried for 3 days after the news broke, not because of the truth, because she'd carried it alone for so long. Marisol stood in the doorway, tears on her cheeks. "I'm sorry," Gideon said to her, "for all of it." She nodded once. Nothing forgiven, but something acknowledged. Gideon walked back into the cold night. Above, stars pricked through light pollution. Behind him, a mother and son stood together in a warm kitchen, no longer carrying their secret alone. Tomorrow he would act. Tonight, for the first time in 13 years, he would sleep without the weight of his lie. The morning sun caught the worn brick of Shield and Shalom Dojo, making it glow like embers. 25 champions stood in formation on the sidewalk, their white GIs pristine against the autumn air. Danny centered himself between them, facing a wall of cameras and phones. 3 days ago, a video was released suggesting I assaulted a student, Danny began, his voice steady. That video was edited. Today, we show you the truth. Sarah stepped forward with a tablet connected to speakers. The original footage played on a large screen they'd borrowed from the church. Crystal clear, multiple angles. Danny stepping between 2 boys, hands open, voice calm, his body blocking a punch meant for a smaller child, his gentle redirection of the aggressor to safety. Frame 247, Sarah narrated, freezing the image. Here's where they cut. Frame 248. Deleted from their version, shows Mr. Ruiz catching the student who was falling, preventing injury. Parents pushed forward. Mrs. Chen, whose daughter attended Danny's beginner class, held a sign. "My child is safer because of this man." Mr. Jackson, a plumber whose son had been bullied last year, carried another, "Warriors protect the weak." "This dojo saved my son," a father called out. "After Afghanistan, he couldn't find peace anywhere else." The champions remained silent, standing in champion stance, feet grounded, hands open. Their presence spoke louder than words. Local news crews scrambled to broadcast live. Social media exploded with shares of the unedited footage. Champion stance began trending. "Mr. Ruiz," a reporter shouted, Will you pursue legal action? No, Danny said simply. We're not here to attack. We're here to protect. That includes protecting the truth. Sophia stepped from formation, breaking protocol. My dad taught me strength isn't about winning fights. It's about preventing them. Every veteran here, every student, knows that code. The crowd swelled. Heartworks employees on early shift. Parents from Unity Night. Pastor June's whole congregation. They filled the street, peaceful but unmovable. 8 blocks away, Gideon Walsh stood at City Hall's marble steps. His usual silver confidence had given way to something raw. Beside him, Marisol wore her Sunday dress, chin high, despite her trembling hands. Eli stood between them, chest pin on his collar. I have lived a lie for 13 years, Gideon began. No preamble, no careful political language. Eli Vega is my son. I denied him, denied his mother, denied the truth to protect my reputation and fortune. Cameras whirred. Reporters jostled. This community is fracturing because of secrets and power plays, mine among them. He looked directly at Eli. I was a coward. This boy deserved better. His mother deserved better. You all deserved better from someone you trusted with influence. Marisol's hand found Eli's shoulder. Effective immediately, I'm recusing myself from all district facility votes. Walsh Holdings' demolition of the Shield and Shalom block is suspended pending full community review. Not my review, yours. Mr. Walsh, a reporter pressed, are you acknowledging paternity legally? I'm acknowledging it every way possible, legal, financial, and most importantly, he turned to Eli, personal, if you'll let me. Eli stepped forward, voice cracking but clear. 13 years is a long time, but my mom taught me everyone deserves a second chance, even fathers who were afraid. The crowd murmured, some angry, some moved. Furthermore, Gideon continued, I'm establishing a trust for Maple Ridge youth programs, starting with a $3 million donation. The first recipient will be whatever the community decides to build on the block I tried to demolish. Why should we trust you? Someone yelled. You shouldn't, Gideon replied. Trust is earned through actions over time. All I'm asking for is the chance to act differently. Marisol finally spoke, her accent thick with emotion. I cleaned this man's house for 9 years, kept his secret longer. Today he tells truth. Maybe tomorrow he learns what family means. At Heartworks, Lila stood frozen before the break room television. Her assistant had called her when both broadcasts began. Now she watched split screen, Danny's truth on the left, Gideon's confession on the right. Jamie sat beside her, Crane half folded in his lap. The truth finally came out, she whispered, tears flowing freely. Is that good? Jamie asked. Yes, baby. Truth is always good, even when it hurts at first. On screen, the crowds at both locations began moving, not dispersing, converging. The dojo supporters marched toward City Hall. The City Hall crowd walked to meet them. In the middle of Main Street, they merged. Danny and Gideon stood face to face for the first time since the crisis began. Your dojo stands, Gideon said. You have my word. Your word hasn't meant much lately, Danny replied evenly. No, it hasn't, but actions might. Danny studied him, then extended his hand. Not absolution, but possibility. The handshake rippled through the crowd. Champions embraced parents. Veterans shook hands with former skeptics. Eli stood awkwardly until Sophia pulled him into the teenage circle forming near the fountain. Principal Pike emerged from the crowd, phone pressed to her ear. She'd been taking call after call from the superintendent, each more furious than the last. Finally, she hung up. The board wants an emergency meeting, she announced, about the superintendent's conduct. The truth had cracked the dam. Now the water rushed through. Lila turned off the television. Come on, Jamie, let's go join them. They walked hand in hand into the morning light, toward the crowd that was slowly, carefully, beginning to heal. 1 week after the truth erupted across Maple Ridge, Superintendent Benson made his move. The emergency board meeting had stalled, procedural delays he'd orchestrated through old allies. Now he stood before city council, jaw set like granite. The Shield and Shalom block represents prime development opportunity, he declared, pointer striking the projection screen. Walsh Holdings may have withdrawn, but other developers are interested. Progress cannot be held hostage by sentiment. Council members shifted uncomfortably. Half owed him favors. The other half watched the gallery, packed with residents. Furthermore, Benson continued, the recent disruptions prove this location attracts unwanted elements. Duh. You mean veterans? Danny stood from his gallery seat. I mean agitators, Mr. Ruiz. People who bring violence. What? With respect. Principal Pike interrupted, rising beside Danny. The only violence documented was fabricated. Benson's face reddened. Principal Pike, you're out of order. No, Superintendent, you are. The gavel struck repeatedly, but the damage was done. Within an hour, word spread through Maple Ridge like wildfire. By noon, Main Street filled. They came in waves. First, the 25 champions, GI's pristine white, black belts stark against the fabric. They formed a line across the dojo's entrance, assuming champion stance, feet shoulder-width apart, hands open at their sides, palms forward. Ready but not aggressive, strong but not threatening. Veterans from Heartworks arrived next, some in old uniforms, others in work clothes bearing the company logo. They flanked the champions, mimicking the stance they'd learned at Unity Night. Then came the grandmothers from New Hope Church, Pastor June leading them with her walker. They stood between the veterans, humming hymns, hands open like they were ready to receive communion or give embraces. Teachers arrived during lunch break. Parents left work early. Children released from school joined their families. Each person took the stance, creating a human wall of peaceful resistance 4 rows deep. News vans screeched to stops. Reporters scrambled for position. This is unprecedented, one broadcaster reported. Hundreds of residents standing in complete silence, hands open, protecting a small dojo that's become the heart of a movement. Superintendent Benson arrived in his official car, expecting to oversee demolition prep. Instead, he found his path blocked by his own community. He emerged, face purple with rage. This is illegal assembly. I'll have you all arrested. On what grounds? The young attorney stepped forward, the one who'd volunteered pro bono. This is a peaceful demonstration on property whose demolition is under legal review. I run this district. You run the schools, Pastor June corrected gently, not the people. Benson stalked along the line, searching for weakness. He stopped at Danny. You poisoned this town against me. Danny remained silent, hands open. Answer me. Sir, Sophia said from her position beside her father, we're not against anyone. We're for something. Benson spun toward the crowd. Where's my son? Cole, get over here. The crowd parted. Cole emerged slowly, his usual swagger gone. His Letterman jacket hung loose on shoulders that seemed smaller now. His mother followed, hand on his back. Tell them, Benson commanded. Tell them these people threatened you. Cole stood between his father and the line of champions. Television cameras zoomed in on his face, 12 years old but aging in that moment. Dad? Cole's voice cracked. Tell them! Cole turned to face Jamie, who stood small but steady in the second row. The younger boy still had a fading bruise on his arm from their last encounter before the champions arrived. I'm sorry, Cole said, loud enough for everyone to hear. What are you doing? Benson grabbed his son's shoulder. Cole shrugged off his father's hand. I'm sorry, Jamie, for the bus stop, for crushing your paper things, for the names I called you and your mom. Jamie stepped forward from the line. Lila started to follow, but Danny caught her eye, shook his head slightly. Let them work this out. I was scared, Cole continued, tears starting. Dad always said, be tough or be nothing. Said gentle kids get eaten alive. Said your mom took jobs from real Americans. Said Mr. Ruiz was dangerous. Gasps rippled through the crowd. He made me target you. Said if I didn't, I was weak, worthless, like— Cole's voice broke completely. Like he said Mom was for crying when Grandpa died. Cole's mother stepped forward. That's enough, Bill. Superintendent Benson turned on his wife. Don't you dare. 20 years of your poison, she said. No more. The crowd held its breath. Cole stood exposed, trembling. 12 years of learned cruelty crumbling. Jamie reached into his pocket and pulled out a new origami crane, blue paper with silver edges. He held it out to Cole. My mom says, hurt people hurt people. Maybe you were hurt too. Cole stared at the delicate creation. Last time he'd crushed one without thinking. Now his hand shook as he accepted it, holding it like spun glass. Thank you, he whispered. Superintendent Benson, a new voice called. The board president emerged from a town car. The board has concluded its emergency review. Your resignation is requested immediately. You can't. We can. We have. Clear your office by end of day. Benson looked around wildly. His allies had melted away. His son stood with the boy he'd tormented. His wife had turned her back. This isn't over, he snarled. But it was. He stalked to his car alone, driving away from the career he'd built on intimidation. The crowd remained in champion stance until his car disappeared. Then, slowly, hands lowered. Children hugged parents. Veterans embraced. Cole and Jamie stood awkwardly until Sophia pulled them both into a hug. You did good, she told Cole. Both of you. The crane remained perfect in Cole's careful grip. 3 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and promise. The announcement came on a Tuesday morning. Gideon stood at a podium outside the dojo, flanked by city officials and community leaders. His usual polish remained, but something deeper had shifted. The practiced smile replaced by genuine humility. Walsh Holdings hereby transfers full ownership of this entire block to the newly established Veterans and Youth Peace Center. He signed the deed with cameras clicking. The dojo will remain its beating heart. Danny accepted the papers, still processing the reversal. Why? Because strength without purpose is just force, Gideon said quietly. You taught me that. My son taught me that. Eli stood with Marisol near the back, watching his father, still learning to use that word, with cautious hope. Later that week, Lila's office buzzed with new energy. 3 ethical investment firms had approached Heartworks after seeing the champion stance coverage. She chose the one run by a veteran's widow who understood their mission. 50 new apprenticeship positions, the investor said, reviewing contracts. Living wages, full benefits. This is how business should work. It's how it will work, Lila corrected. At least here. The school district meetings transformed too. Principal Pike, freed from donor pressure, worked with the champions to design something unprecedented, a restorative justice program where students who hurt others learned to make amends, not just serve detention. Punishment teaches fear, the elderly Aikido master explained to the school board. Restoration teaches responsibility. Cole became the program's first participant. Every afternoon he trained at the dojo alongside Jamie, learning that real strength meant protecting others. His father's voice still echoed sometimes, be tough or be nothing, but quieter now, drowned by better lessons. Thursday evenings became sacred at the Peace Center. Gideon arrived promptly at 6, carrying a worn chess set and fresh notebooks. He tutored math and strategy, patient with struggling students in ways he'd never been with employees. Mr. Walsh, one child asked, why do you come here? Gideon glanced at Eli, practicing kata across the room. Because I spent too many years building walls. Now I'm learning to build bridges. Eli heard, said nothing. But the next week, he joined the tutoring table, sitting 1 seat away from his father. Not close yet, but closer. Marisol watched from the parent viewing area, her dignity intact, but her anger still simmering. Pastor June sat beside her. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, June said gently. I know, But 13 years of denial, that's a lot to forgive. Start with 13 minutes, then 13 more. Small steps. Meanwhile, Lila and Danny navigated their own careful dance. They shared family dinners. Jamie and Sophia had become inseparable, but kept focus on their children and community. Still, moments slipped through. "You've got flour in your hair," Danny said one evening, helping prepare meals for the center's grand opening. "You've got sauce on your nose," she countered. They laughed, leaning closer, then pulled back. Not yet. Too much healing still needed space. Sophia noticed everything. "You know my dad likes you, right?" "Sophia," Jamie protested, mortified for the adults. "What? It's obvious." And Ms. Hart looks at him like Mom used to look at Dad, before. The teenager's voice softened on that last word. "How?" Jamie asked. "Like she's safe, like she can breathe." The grand opening arrived on a crisp Saturday. The entire block had transformed. Fresh paint covered old graffiti. Windows sparkled. A mural stretched across the dojo's exterior wall. Hands of every shade and size, open and reaching. The crowd surpassed Unity Night. Veterans from 3 counties, families from every neighborhood, city officials who'd once stayed silent, even Cole's mother, now separated from her husband, volunteering at the welcome table. "This isn't just a building," Mayor Chen announced. "It's proof that communities can choose courage over comfort, compassion over control." The ribbon stretched across the main entrance, not red, but woven from 25 belt colors, white to black. Jamie stood at center, Sophia on his right, Eli on his left. "You should cut it," Jamie told Eli. "You were brave first, telling the truth." "We all were brave," Eli replied. "Different ways, different times." They held the scissors together, 3 kids who'd learned that strength meant standing together, not standing over. "Ready?" Sophia asked. They cut as one. The ribbon fell away like old fears. The crowd surged forward to explore. Treatment rooms for veteran therapy, study spaces for after-school programs, the dojo, expanded but unchanged in spirit, a meditation garden where Jamie's origami cranes hung from trees, weatherproofed and multiplying. Gideon found Marisol by the refreshment table. "Thank you," he said simply, "for raising him right despite me." She studied him. "Don't thank me, just be better. Every day, be better." "I'm trying." "Try harder." But she didn't walk away. Progress. As sunset approached, Danny stood with Lila on the roof deck, watching their children teach crane folding to a group below. "We did it," she said. "The community did it." Led by a veteran who knew strength meant protecting the weak. Supported by a CEO who risked everything for her son. They stood close, hands almost touching on the railing. "Lila, oh." "I know. When it's time. When it's time," he agreed. Below, Jamie released a paper crane into the wind. It caught an updraft, spiraling higher, carrying hope over Maple Ridge's rooftops. The Peace Center's lights flickered on as darkness fell, a beacon that would shine every night forward. December arrived with fresh snow and transformed hearts. The school gym hummed with preparation as families streamed through doors that once witnessed Unity Night's first triumph. Now something deeper filled the space, not just hope, but proof of change made permanent. Hundreds of origami cranes hung from the rafters in brilliant strings, red, gold, purple, green, creating a paper sky that caught the light like stained glass. Each crane bore a name in careful script, the child who folded it, the person they honored. Veterans, teachers, parents who'd found courage, kids who'd learned to stand tall. Jamie adjusted his white belt for the 3rd time, hands steady now where they once trembled. Beside him, 6 other beginners, including Cole, prepared for their demonstration. Cole's mother watched from the bleachers, free now from the marriage that had taught her son the wrong lessons about strength. "Remember," Sophia coached them, "kata isn't about perfect moves. It's about moving together." The champions stood behind the children in formation, 25 protectors who'd answered one father's call and changed a town's direction. Danny centered them, his presence calm, as always, though his eyes kept finding Lila in the crowd. Principal Pike, no longer Pike, but Principal Martinez, hired after the board cleaned house, stepped to the microphone. Tonight we celebrate not just the season, but transformation, real, lasting change that started with people brave enough to say, "No more." The demonstration began, 7 small bodies moving through basic forms, imperfect but earnest. When Cole stumbled, Jamie steadied him without hesitation. When another child forgot the sequence, they all paused, waiting, then continued together. The crowd's applause shook the crane strings overhead, setting them dancing. Pastor June took the microphone next, her voice warm as evening prayer. "I've lived in Maple Ridge 40 years, seen it at its best and worst. Tonight I see its truth. This is a town that chose compassion with courage." That's not a moment. That's a legacy. The formal program ended. Tables emerged from storage, and the gym transformed into the community potluck it was meant to be. Casseroles appeared like magic, pies multiplied. The champions' families had cooked for days. Korean bulgogi, Mexican tamales, soul food mac and cheese, Minnesota hot dish. America on plates, shared freely. Gideon sat with Eli and Marisol at a corner table. Not yet a family, but no longer strangers. He helped Eli practice chess moves between bites of Pastor June's cornbread. "Your endgame's improving," Gideon noted. "Mom says I get my strategy from you." Marisol's expression stayed neutral, but she didn't contradict. Small victories. The evening mellowed into gentle chaos. Children running between tables, grandparents telling stories, veterans comparing service years. Someone had brought a speaker, and soft music drifted through conversations. Danny found Lila refilling punch bowls. All was working even at celebrations. "Dance with me," he said. Not a question exactly, but close. "The kids are fine, look." She followed his gaze. Jamie, Sophia, and Eli had claimed a table near the crane display, teaching younger children to fold paper. Jamie's hands moved with patient confidence, creating beauty from simple squares. The song shifted to something slower. Danny offered his hand. They moved onto the small, cleared space near the stage. Not quite a dance floor, but enough. Other couples joined. Pastor June with her deacon husband, new friends made through struggle, even Principal Martinez with the fire chief. "We never talked about after," Lila said against Danny's shoulder. "After? After the crisis, after the victories, after everyone else moves on. We don't move on, we move forward. Together? If you'll have us. Sophia and me, our complications and memories. Only if you'll have ours. Jamie and me, our careful hearts." They swayed through the song's end and another's beginning, not rushing toward tomorrow, but not afraid of it either. Near the crane display, Jamie looked up at the paper bridge above him. Each bird caught gymnasium light differently, some bright, some shadowed, all connected by invisible thread and visible hope. "Small and strong," he whispered, the words that had become his truth. Sophia heard him. "You know what's better than small and strong?" "What?" "Together and strong." Eli nodded, adding quietly, "broken and strong." The 3 children stood beneath the bridge of cranes their community had built. Behind them, their parents danced. Around them, their town celebrated. Above them, paper wings held promises that hate could be answered with hope, that fear could be met with faith, that the smallest hands could fold the future into better shapes. The gym lights glowed warm against December darkness. Outside, snow began falling, blanketing Maple Ridge in fresh white. Inside, the changed town shared food and stories, children and champions, confession and forgiveness. Cole approached the trio by the cranes, holding his own folded bird, crooked but earnest. "Can I add mine?" Jamie smiled, remembering Danny's first lesson. Real champions don't make others small. Everyone can add theirs. That's what makes it strong. They strung Cole's crane with the others, 4 children building bridges where walls once stood. The holiday concert had become something more, a testament to transformation, a celebration of courage, a bridge of cranes carrying an entire town toward tomorrow. The lights stayed bright until the last family left. The last crane was counted. The last dance ended with promise instead of parting. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.